The laughter started before she even reached the firing line. It spread down the row of men like fire across dry grass, low at first, then louder. The kind of laughter that is not about something funny, but about someone small. Sergeant Marcus Drell had started it. A short bark that became a grin, that became a nudge to the man on his left. And the nudge became a comment. And the comment became something that moved through 12 Navy SEALs standing in the morning cold like a current. She heard it. She kept walking. Her name was not on the board yet. They had written the other candidates in black marker, names, scores, unit designations, and left a blank line at the bottom where hers should have been, because nobody had expected her to show up. And the man running the board had not brought enough marker to add a charity case to the list. She set her kit bag down at the end of the line. She looked at the range. 8 steel plates, moving laterally on motorized tracks, staggered distances between 400 and 900 meters, irregular speeds, no fixed pattern. The evaluation drill was designed to run 12 minutes. In 4 years of this program, no candidate had cleared all 8 in a single run. She unzipped the bag without hurrying. Drell was still grinning. Before we go any further, if this story already has your blood moving, hit that subscribe button right now and stay with me until the very last word. Drop a comment below telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel, because what happens on this range you will not want to miss. Captain Sarah Holt did not look like she belonged on a precision marksmanship evaluation. She was 31 years old, 5'5", with a lean, understated build that suggested endurance rather than force. She wore standard-issue cold weather gear with no patches, no unit designation visible, no rank displayed at the collar, which was not an accident. She had learned early that rank displayed was an invitation for men to calculate against it, to run the math on whether she had earned the designation or been handed it. And she had grown tired of that particular calculation. Her hair was pulled back flat. Her eyes were a steady, unremarkable brown that had a habit of focusing slightly past whatever you were saying to her, as though she was listening to something else at the same time. She had driven 4 hours to reach this range, alone, in a truck that needed new brake pads and was running low on washer fluid. She had eaten a granola bar somewhere around the 2nd hour and nothing else. She was not nervous. She had been on this range twice before in the last decade, under different circumstances and different names, and she had never once fired a round on it that she regretted. The 12 SEALs on the evaluation roster were all between 24 and 34 years old, all decorated, all confident in the specific calibrated way that men become confident when they have been told for long enough that they are the best. Sergeant Marcus Drell was the loudest of them, naturally. He had finished first in his sniper school class, carried a confirmed long-range kill record in the mid-30s, and had an easy, comfortable authority over the other men that he wore like a second uniform. He was good. He knew it. He was also the kind of good that makes a man stop looking for things that might be better. He had looked at Sarah Holt when she arrived and made his assessment in approximately 4 seconds. He had been wrong before, but he had never known it. She crouched beside her kit bag and began laying out her equipment with the quiet efficiency of someone doing a routine they have repeated so many times that it no longer requires thought. M24 sniper system, adjusted for altitude and current barometric pressure. Bipod deployed. Scope checked. She produced a small notebook from the outer pocket of the bag, opened it to a page with handwritten calculations, wind tables, drop charts, target speed estimates at 4 distances, and set it open beside her on the ground. Tate, standing to Drell's left, leaned over. "She brought notes," he said. Drell looked at the notebook. Then he looked at Sarah. Then he looked back at Tate and said, quietly enough that he thought she could not hear, This one's a joke." The laughter moved through the line again. Sarah wrote a small number in the margin of her notebook. She did not look up. Drell was the first to run. He moved to the firing position at 0730 with the unhurried ease of a man who has done this enough times that anticipation has been replaced by expectation. He settled into the prone, adjusted, breathed, and began. The plates moved across the tracks in their irregular patterns, fast, slow, reversing, overlapping. And he fired with steady precision, working from left to right, redialing between distances, keeping his breathing flat. He hit 6 of 8 in 11 minutes and 40 seconds. It was the best score of the morning. It was also the best score in this program's 4-year history. The men on the line responded with approval, the kind that is also a little bit relief, because 6 out of 8 from the best shooter on the range established a ceiling. And ceilings are comfortable. 3 more candidates ran. Highest additional score, 4 of 8. Then they called Sarah Holt's name. She stood, closed her notebook, and picked up her rifle. Drell said something to the man beside him. The man beside him smiled. Somebody at the far end of the line made a comment about time limits and whether they applied to observers. She walked to the firing position and lowered herself into the prone without rushing, without performance, with the simple economy of a person whose body knows this geometry well. She set the bipod. She checked the scope. She rested her cheek against the stock. The range officer looked at her. "Ready when you are, Captain." She took one breath, let half of it out. "Run the drill," she said. What Sergeant Marcus Drell did not know, what none of the 12 men on that line knew, because the relevant files were classified above the pay grade of an evaluation roster, was that Sarah Holt had been shooting moving targets since she was 11 years old. Her father, Chief Warrant Officer David Holt, had been a third-generation Army precision shooter who had spent 31 years building a body of knowledge about long-range marksmanship that he had never been able to fully put into writing. He had put it into his daughter instead. He started with stationary targets at 100 meters when she was 8. And by the time she was 11, she was shooting moving clay at 400. And by 13, she had moved to a system of her own design. Steel plates on motorized tracks at irregular distances, at varying speeds, with no fixed pattern. The system she was looking at now was different from her father's. More sophisticated hardware, better motors, tighter tolerances. But the geometry was the same. Moving steel at distance, in wind, at variable speed, without a pattern. She had been solving this problem since she was a child. David Holt had died of a cardiac event on a Tuesday morning when Sarah was 26 and in the middle of her 3rd combat deployment. She had been notified by satellite relay. She had been in an overwatch position on a ridgeline in the Helmand province. She had asked her CO for 4 hours after the mission cleared, and in those 4 hours she had done something she did not discuss with anyone. And then she had gone back to work, because going back to work was what her father had taught her. Not as avoidance, as tribute. She carried a list in her wallet. It was written in his handwriting, faded now, the paper soft from folding and unfolding. It said, "Wind is the only honest thing on a range. Read it first. Adjust everything else to it." She had read the wind at this range for 40 minutes before the evaluation started. She knew what it was doing. The first plate went at 3 seconds. It was the leftmost target, 420 meters, moving right to left at moderate speed. The crack of the rifle rolled across the range and the plate swung hard on its track. Hit, center mass, clean, before the sound finished echoing. The range officer made a mark on his clipboard. At the firing line, nobody laughed. The laughter had stopped at the sound of the shot, not because one hit was remarkable, but because of the time. 3 seconds from drill start to first confirmed hit. Drell had taken 11 seconds to his first hit. He had needed to settle. She had been settled before they ran the drill. Second plate at 9 seconds, 680 meters, reversing direction mid-track. She had adjusted for the reversal before it happened, reading the motor rhythm from the first half of its travel. A technical detail her father had taught her, that motorized systems have a lag signature at the reversal point, a brief deceleration that creates a half-second window of near stasis. She fired into the window. The plate swung. Third plate at 18 seconds. 900 meters, the longest distance on the range, moving slow and steady from right to left. This was the one that eliminated most candidates, because at 900 meters, in variable morning wind, the margin for error on a moving target is measured in fractions of a degree, and fractions of a degree are the difference between a mark on the clipboard and a miss that makes the men behind you go quiet in the wrong way. She corrected for the wind, for the drop, for the target's speed, for the 6-second flight time of the round, which meant she was firing at a point the plate had not yet reached and trusting her math. The plate swung. Behind her, someone said quietly, 3 for 3. She was already on the 4th. The range had gone completely silent by the 5th plate. Not the silence of boredom or patience, but the specific silence that falls over trained men when they are watching something that is reorganizing their understanding of what is possible. Drell was standing at the right end of the line, with his arms no longer crossed. His weight shifted forward slightly, his eyes fixed on the prone figure at the firing point, with an expression that was working through several stages of something he had not expected to experience today. 5th plate. 560 meters, fast lateral movement, direction irregular. She had identified the irregularity as a repeating 4-beat pattern on her second observation of the drill running for a previous candidate. She fired on beat 3 when the plate's speed was lowest. Hit. 6th plate. 480 meters, overlapping the 7th plate's track so that the two targets would cross paths at approximately the 40-second mark. She fired the 6th plate at 38 seconds, 2 seconds before the crossing, clearing it before the tracks converged. Hit. 7th plate. The crossing plate, now moving alone on its track, 610 meters. The wind had shifted 2 degrees left in the last 90 seconds. She had felt it. The way you feel a change in temperature before you can name it. An instinct built from years of standing on ranges and learning what moving air feels like against exposed skin. She adjusted 1 click left. Fired. Hit. 7 of 8. Confirmed. In under 3 minutes. The range officer had stopped writing. He was staring at his clipboard. The 8th plate was the problem plate. It had eliminated every candidate, including Drell, not because of its distance, 730 meters, moderate, but because of its behavioral pattern, which was not motorized, but manually operated from the range control booth, a human operator varying the speed and direction in real time, making it genuinely unpredictable. Drell had taken 4 shots at it and missed all 4. 2 previous candidates had not fired at it at all, saving the round rather than adding a miss to their record. Sarah lay still. She watched the 8th plate move. It went left, then reversed, then accelerated right, then slowed. The human operator was trying to be random, which humans are very bad at. She had been watching this plate since the drill began. She had not looked at it continuously. She could not. There were 7 other targets. But every time her scope crossed it, she had registered its position, its speed, its direction, building a data set in the pattern recognition part of her brain that operates below language, below conscious calculation, below the level that can be articulated in words. Her father had called it reading the shooter's mind in reverse. The operator was trying to be unpredictable. But unpredictability has rhythms too, and rhythm is just pattern at a longer interval. She waited. The plate reversed and decelerated, and for approximately 0.6 of a second moved at roughly the same speed it had moved 3 previous times at this point in its cycle. She fired. The plate swung hard, turned on its track, and was still. 8 for 8. Total time, 4 minutes and 11 seconds. Nobody spoke for a moment. The range officer wrote a number on his clipboard, looked at it, and wrote it again, which is something range officers do not normally do. Then, he looked up. 8 confirmed hits, he said. 4 minutes, 11 seconds. He paused. Current program record. Drell had not moved from his position at the right end of the line. His face had gone through the shock quickly, the way trained men do, processing, reclassifying, arriving at something quieter and more complicated than either laughter or admiration. Sarah stood. She removed the magazine. She cleared the chamber. She engaged the safety. She did these things in the correct order, without hurry, with the same economy of motion she had brought to every other part of this morning. She picked up her notebook from the ground. She walked back to her kit bag. Corporal Jesse Okafor, who was 26 years old and had not laughed when Drell laughed because something in his second year on this unit had taught him to wait before making assessments, stepped forward from the line. "Captain," he said. She looked at him. He didn't have a question. He had started with one, and it had dissolved before he could finish forming it. What he said instead was, "How long have you been doing this?" She thought about it. She thought about a range in rural Virginia, a Tuesday afternoon, a steel plate at 400 meters, an 11-year-old girl and a father who taught her that wind is the only honest thing. "A while," she said. She zipped the kit bag closed. Drell walked to the firing position and stood there for a moment looking at the 8 plates, all motionless on their tracks, all hit, all cleared in a time that was going to stay on that board for a long time. He stood there the way you stand when you are recalculating something important, and the math keeps coming back different than you expected. He turned around. Sarah was packing her notebook away. He crossed the range toward her, and when he was close enough he stopped, and she looked at him with the same steady, unremarkable brown eyes she had been looking at him with since she arrived. "I was wrong," he said. It was 4 words. It cost him something. She could see that it did. She looked at him for a moment. "You hit 6, she said. "That's not nothing." She picked up the bag, shouldered it, and walked toward the parking area and the truck with the bad brakes and the low washer fluid, and the 4-hour drive back to wherever the next range was, and the one after that, and all the work that was still ahead of her, and did not care who had laughed or when. The men who are quickest to dismiss the unfamiliar are rarely the most capable ones in the room. They are simply the most afraid of having their ceiling raised. Drell was good. He earned that. But goodness that cannot make room for better is only protecting itself, not the mission. Sarah Holt did not shoot 8 plates to prove a point. She shot them because the work was in front of her, and the work was what mattered. Her father taught her that the range is honest. Wind does not care about your record. Steel does not care about your rank. The targets move the same for everyone. What separates the ones who hit from the ones who miss is not talent. It is the years of quiet work done on ranges where nobody was watching, and there was nothing to prove, and you simply chose to get better anyway.